the last time we spoke was for an education, which was a while ago,
Yes.
and many screenplays ago. They're
Yes.
keeping you busy now.
Yes, it's interesting once you become, I guess, established in a different kind of career. The problem with film is that people keep coming with really amazing stuff, and I don't want to miss out on it. And with books, it all has to come from you, and you have to have the time and the space to think about something. So the books are being a lot slower than the.
Are you missing that?
No, that's the thing. It's writing. It's all writing to me, and getting to work with really interesting people after a quarter of a century nearly of sitting on my own in a room is. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Well, Wild turned out okay.
Wild turned out well.
So that was that one particularly fun or particularly difficult for you?
It was difficult because, unlike every other movie I've been involved with, either from one of my books or a screenplay, it went like a train. So from the first day of talking to Reese about it to the last day of shooting, I think it was about 14 months.
Wow. And you were the one who had to sort of figure out how to make that trek work and with the flashbacks and all that stuff. That was a very tricky one.
It was a tricky adaptation, and I felt the pressure because Reese was so ready to go, and she had this window, and she wanted to make it then, and it felt like it was all set up, and the only thing that was standing in the way was that I hadn't written a page of it.
What's your process like on a daily basis? Where are you, and how do you sort of approach your working day?
I'm in my office, which is a small flat about 10 minutes walk from my house. So my working day is a really irregular working day, like sort of 9:30 to 6. My process is horrible and messy, and I just somehow during the day get stuff done. I couldn't really glorify it with any.
Is it a computer?
Yeah. I've got a big Apple screen, so I think I can have 3 pages open on the screen, which I like.
You move around that way.
Yeah.
So this movie is based on a very respected and beloved novel, and you seem to have stayed fairly true. Mm-hmm. But because it has a very strange structure, especially if you're looking at it in cinematic terms.
Yeah.
It's in 2 parts, really. There's some cross-cutting, but you really are juxtaposing 2 different worlds.
Yes, and I think the strangest part of the structure is that there is a love triangle in it, but the first guy doesn't come in until the midway point of the book, and the second guy comes in like 20 pages from the end of the book. I think it's page 220 out of a 260 page book.
Wow.
So.
And in movie terms, no matter how you splice it, if you have a romance in an ordinary conventional movie, you are rooting for one couple to get together.
Yes.
Usually.
Yes, and in fact, really the thing that attracted me to the book as an adaptation was getting to that point in the book and thinking, she's left that guy behind, and then realising that Colin was going to introduce us to somebody else, and thinking, get out, I'm not going to like this guy, I like the other guy, I'm not going to like this guy, so don't even try and tell me that this is a viable alternative. And then about 5 pages later in the novel thinking, I can see this. and wanting to try and find a cinematic version of that worked, so that 10, 15 minutes from the end of a movie, audience doesn't know what they want for her, and she doesn't know what she wants for herself, and that felt really interesting to try and do.
It becomes a question of balance and being and timing, because it's a 2 hour. It's approximately 2 hours, isn't it?
It's shorter.
A little bit shorter. So you're playing with our sympathies. It's true. It throws you off balance.
Meeting the second guy, yeah, and that there's something that feels metaphorical also about going back to the place where you grew up and everything suddenly being there for you. Because I think one of the things that maybe works on audiences is that we've all left. And we all left because there wasn't the thing that we wanted in the place where we were. And it doesn't matter if you've never left America. You've probably moved from another place in America. And that move was a wrench. And it's where your school was, where your friends were, where your family is. And you have to leave because you have some kind of hunger and ambition for something else. Well, to be suddenly put back wherever it was and say, okay, you can be a movie critic, and there's a really nice guy for you to choose from, or a very nice girl for you to choose from, and here's a great house, and you are financially secure. I think all of us would be a little bit kind of thrown by that idea, because it's usually easy for us. We don't want to go back, and what's unusual in this movie is that she goes back and suddenly there's a job that she couldn't find before. There's a guy that she didn't have before. She's back with her mum who needs her, and that's a very, very strong lure, I think.
Slight problem.
Yes, there is that.
So what was when you worked with Crowley?
Yeah.
How did you two work together in terms of sort of straightening out the way you were going to structure this?
Well, John came on reasonably late, so the script was in decent shape, and I'd done 2 or 3 drafts, I think, and I was reading the first draft recently for something I wrote, and lots of the things that I thought I'd had a problem with were actually already in the first draft.
What did you think you had a problem with?
Well, things that I thought we would have to change. The ending, because the movie extends the book. The book ends with Ailish on the train, kind of devastated after leaving her mother, and I extended it so that she had the scene on the boat with the new girl who's going out, and then seeing Tony back in Brooklyn. And in order for that to work, I had to change the confrontation with Nettles Kelly, the horrible old lady in the shop. In the book, really, Ailish goes because Nettles Kelly has rumbled her and she's left with no choice. And I suppose the bone we tossed a contemporary audience and ourselves really was to give Ailish a little more agency in that scene. So her saying I'd forgotten what this town was like.
Very important, I think.
To have the agency.
Yeah.
It felt like that to us.
It reminded her of why she didn't want to live there.
Why she didn't want to live there in the first place, and it gave her some fuel to go to America with, rather than just kind of having run out of fuel from this confrontation. She's angered by it, and a lot of things fall from her eyes. And John and I were both of a mind always that we wanted her to go back to America, that was our choice from reading the book, if you see what I mean. Our what should she do, we were quite clear, and I think it was both, well, John grew up in a small town in Ireland, and I grew up in a small town outside London, and John always described it as the poppy scene The Wizard of Oz. You just want to say to her, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. Oh, she's going to sleep, she's going back to sleep in Ireland. So, I was rooting for her to go back to America and to put my thumb on the scales a tiny bit to make that feel like the best and most attractive option.